My husband's family made me eat in the kitchen like a servant while they dined in the grand hall for 4 years. Every family dinner, every holiday, every celebration. They would gather around the mahogany dining table, 12 seats, crystal chandeliers, fine china passed down through generations, while I sat alone on a wooden stool in the kitchen, eating the same food but treated like I didn't deserve to share the same air. It's tradition, my mother-in-law Eleanor had explained on my first night as a Morrison wife. The family dines together. Outsiders eat separately until they've proven themselves worthy. Proven myself? I'm Marcus's wife. You're a stranger who married into this family. Worthiness is earned, not assumed. I looked at my husband standing beside his mother, waiting for him to object, to defend me, to say something. He said nothing. He just shrugged apologetically and walked into the dining room without me. That was 4 years ago. For 4 years, I had eaten, alone in the kitchen while laughter and conversation drifted through the walls. For 4 years, I had watched through the doorway as they toasted birthdays and anniversaries and holidays. Celebrations I was part of but not included in. For 4 years, I had told myself that if I was patient enough, kind enough, good enough, they would eventually accept me. I was wrong. They were never going to accept me. And on our 4th wedding anniversary, Eleanor Morrison made that perfectly clear. The anniversary dinner was at the Morrison estate, a sprawling mansion outside Atlanta that had been in the family for 5 generations. Marcus had insisted we celebrate there, despite my protests. It's our anniversary, I said. Can't we do something just the 2 of us? Mom would be hurt if we didn't include the family. You know how she is. Yes, I knew exactly how she was. But I went anyway because I had spent 4 years trying to keep the peace, trying to avoid conflict, trying to be the bigger person. The dinner was the same as always. The family gathered in the dining hall. Marcus's parents, his 2 brothers, their wives, the grandmother who looked at me like I was something she had scraped off her shoe, 12 people around the mahogany table, and me in the kitchen, sitting on my wooden stool, eating alone, on my own anniversary. I could hear them through the wall. The clinking of glasses, the murmur of conversation, occasional bursts of laughter. They were celebrating my marriage without me. The absurdity of it should have made me angry. Instead, it just made me sad, tired, empty. After 4 years, I didn't have enough energy left for anger. That's when Eleanor walked into the kitchen. She was carrying an empty wine glass, presumably to refill from the bottle on the counter. But when she saw me sitting there, eating my anniversary dinner alone like a dog banished to a corner, she smiled. Not a kind smile. The smile of someone who has won and wants you to know it. Still here? She asked, pouring her wine. I thought you might have given up by now. Given up on what? On pretending you belong in this family. She took a sip, studying me over the rim of her glass. You know, we've made bets about how long you'd last. Marcus's brother, Jonathan, thought 2 years. I said 3. Looks like we were both wrong. I'm not going anywhere, Eleanor. I love your son. Love. She laughed, a cold, brittle sound. You love his money. You love this house. You love the Morrison name. But you don't love Marcus. Women like you don't know how to love. Women like me? Women from nowhere. Women with nothing. Women who see a wealthy man and attach themselves like parasites. She set down her glass and looked at me with undisguised contempt. You're lucky we even keep you. Most families would have disposed of you years ago. The words landed like a slap. Lucky we even keep you. Like I was a stray dog they had charitably allowed to sleep on the porch. I wanted to respond, to defend myself, to tell her exactly what I thought of her and her precious family traditions. But before I could speak, I heard footsteps. Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway. He had heard everything. I could see it in his face. The discomfort, the awareness that his mother had crossed a line. This was it. This was the moment he would finally stand up for me. Finally tell his mother that I was his wife, that I deserved respect, that he wouldn't tolerate her treating me like this. Mom, he said, his voice careful, maybe we should get back to dinner. That was it. That was all he said. Maybe we should get back to dinner. Not, don't talk to my wife like that. Not, she deserves better than this. Not, I love her and I won't let you disrespect her. Just, maybe we should get back to dinner. Eleanor smiled at me one more time, a triumphant, victorious smile, and walked out of the kitchen with her son trailing behind her like an obedient puppy, and I sat there, on my wooden stool, surrounded by the remnants of my anniversary dinner, and I felt something shift inside me. For 4 years I had been patient. For 4 years I had been kind. For 4 years I had told myself that things would get better, that my husband would eventually choose me, that the Morrison family would accept me if I just tried hard enough. But I was done trying. I was done being patient. I was done eating in the kitchen while they laughed at me in the hall. I picked up my phone, and I made one call. My name is Vivienne Okafor. I am 31 years old. I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, the daughter of Emmanuel and Adaora Okafor. My parents are not wealthy by Morrison standards. They are wealthy by any standards. My father built Okafor Industries from a small manufacturing company into a multinational conglomerate with operations in 12 African countries, 6 European nations, and expanding interests throughout North America. My mother founded the Adaora Foundation, which has built schools, hospitals, and clean water systems across sub-Saharan Africa. Together, their net worth exceeds $2.3 billion. I never told the Morrisons, not because I was hiding anything, but because they never asked. They looked at my dark skin, heard my accent, learned I came from Nigeria, and they assumed. They assumed I was nobody. They assumed I was poor. They assumed I had married Marcus for his money, his name, his position. They never once considered that I might have money of my own. They never once wondered why a woman would tolerate being treated like a servant unless she had no other options. They were wrong about everything, and tonight, they were going to find out exactly how wrong they had been. Let me tell you how I ended up eating in the Morrison kitchen for 4 years. I met Marcus Morrison at a business conference in London. I was 27, working for my father's company as a regional director for European operations. Marcus was there, representing his family's real estate development firm. He was charming, attentive, different from the men I usually met. Men who either knew exactly who my father was and wanted access to his wealth, or who dismissed me entirely when they learned I was African. Marcus didn't seem to care about either thing. He saw me. He pursued me. He made me feel special in a way I hadn't experienced before. We dated for 8 months before he proposed. I said yes, believing that I had found a partner who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. I was half right. Marcus did value me. When we were alone, when no one was watching, when his family's expectations weren't pressing down on him. But the moment we stepped into his family's orbit, he became someone else entirely, a child seeking approval, a puppet dancing on strings held by his mother, a coward who wouldn't defend his wife because defending her meant challenging the woman who controlled the family money. I didn't realize how deep the rot went until after the wedding. My parents had concerns, of course. They had done their due diligence on the Morrison family, research that revealed the Morrisons were wealthy by American standards, but nothing compared to the Okafor empire. "They don't know who you are," my mother said before the wedding. "That concerns me. I want them to know me, not my family's money. And if they treat you poorly because they think you're powerless, then they'll show me who they really are, and I'll deal with it. You have a plan?" "I always have a plan, Mama." She smiled at that. That's my daughter. The plan was simple. Observe, document, wait. I wanted to see what kind of family I had married into. I wanted to know if their coldness was just initial suspicion or something deeper, more permanent. I wanted to know if my husband would choose me when it mattered. So I ate in the kitchen. I accepted the insults. I watched and waited and documented everything. 4 years of evidence, 4 years of cruelty, 4 years of waiting for Marcus to be the man I had thought he was. He never was. And now I was done waiting. The phone call I made that night was to my father. "Papa," I said when he answered, "I need you to come to Atlanta." "Vivian, what's wrong? Are you hurt?" "Not physically, but I need to end this. Tomorrow morning." A pause. Then, "Tell me what you need." I told him everything. The kitchen, the insults, the years of being treated like a servant. I told him about Eleanor's words, about Marcus's silence, about the anniversary dinner I had eaten alone, and I told him what I wanted to happen. "Are you sure?" he asked when I finished. "Once we do this, there's no going back." "I've never been more sure of anything, Papa." "Then it will be done. 3 cars tomorrow morning. I'll be in the first one." "I love you, Papa." "I love you too, my daughter, and I'm sorry I let this go on so long. I should have intervened years ago. I needed to be sure. I needed to see if he would choose me. And he didn't. No, he didn't. He never did. Then he was never worthy of you. And tomorrow, everyone will know it." The next morning dawned bright and cold. I was already awake when the sun rose, sitting by the window of the guest room where Marcus had left me the night before. "You're being dramatic," he had said when I told him I wouldn't share his bed. "Mom didn't mean anything by it. You're overreacting." Overreacting. That was always his response. Every insult, every humiliation, every time his family treated me like garbage. I was overreacting. But I wasn't overreacting. I was planning. At exactly 9 a.m., 3 black Mercedes Maybach sedans pulled up the Morrison driveway. I watched from the window as they stopped in front of the house. Sleek, expensive, unmistakably important. The kind of cars that announce serious business. The Morrison family had gathered in the living room for a post-anniversary brunch. I could hear them laughing, completely unaware of what was about to happen. The doorbell rang. "I'll get it," I heard Eleanor say, her heels clicking across the marble floor. The front door opened, and then there was silence. I came down the stairs slowly, deliberately, savoring every step. The scene in the foyer was exactly what I had imagined. Eleanor Morrison stood frozen in the doorway, her face the color of ash. Behind her, the rest of the family had gathered. Robert Morrison, the patriarch, Marcus and his brothers, the wives, the grandmother. All of them staring at the man who stood on their front porch. My father, Emmanuel Okafor, dressed in a custom 3-piece suit that cost more than the Morrison family's annual clothing budget combined. Flanked by 2 attorneys and 3 security personnel, looking every inch the billionaire he was. "Good morning," my father said, his voice calm and controlled. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." Who are you?" Robert Morrison managed to stammer. "I am Emmanuel Okafor, Chairman and CEO of Okafor Industries, founder of the Okafor Investment Group, and father to the woman you have been treating like a servant for the past 4 years." He stepped into the foyer, and the Morrisons instinctively stepped back. "I understand there has been some confusion about my daughter's position. Allow me to clarify." He pulled out his phone and showed them something on the screen. "This is my daughter's trust fund, the one her grandmother established when she was born. Current value, $127 million. Gasps from the assembled Morrisons. "This is the property portfolio she inherited from her grandfather, 17 commercial properties across 3 continents. Estimated value, $340 million. More gasps. "And this," he swiped to another screen, "is her personal net worth, including her salary, bonuses, and investment returns from her position as Regional Director of Okafor Industries European Operations, approximately $23 million in liquid assets." The room was absolutely silent. Eleanor Morrison looked like she might faint. "So you see," my father continued, "when you made my daughter eat in the kitchen, you weren't putting a poor immigrant in her place. You were disrespecting one of the wealthiest heiresses in Africa. When you called her a parasite, you insulted a woman who could buy your entire estate with the interest from her trust fund. And when you said you were lucky to keep her," he smiled, "you revealed exactly who you are. Small, petty, ignorant. The kind of people who can only feel important by making others feel worthless." "We didn't know," Eleanor started. "Exactly. You didn't know. Because you didn't bother to ask. You looked at my daughter's skin, heard her accent, and you assumed. You treated her based on your assumptions rather than her reality." "Mr. Okafor, please." Robert Morrison stepped forward, his hands raised in a conciliatory gesture. "This has all been a terrible misunderstanding. If we had known—" "If you had known, you would have treated her differently? That's supposed to make it better?" My father's voice turned cold. "My daughter is the same person she was yesterday, the same person she's been for 4 years. The only thing that's changed is your understanding of her power. and that tells me everything I need to know about your character." I reached the bottom of the stairs. Every eye in the room turned to me. "Vivienne," Marcus said, his voice desperate. "I didn't know. You never told me." "I told you I came from a good family. I told you my parents were successful. You never asked for details because you didn't care. You assumed I was lucky to have you, just like your mother assumed I was lucky to be kept. That's not fair. I loved you. You loved the idea of me. A wife who was dependent on you, a woman you could control because she had nowhere else to go. But I was never that woman, Marcus. I was always this." I gestured to my father, to the cars outside, to the life I had hidden for 4 years. "You just never bothered to look." Marcus's face crumpled. "What do you want? Money? We can work this out." "Money?" I laughed. "You think I want your money? Your entire family's wealth is a rounding error in my portfolio." "Then what?" "I want a divorce. I want it finalized within 30 days, and I want your family to understand exactly what they lost." I turned to Eleanor, who was still standing frozen by the door. "For 4 years, you made me eat in the kitchen. You called me a parasite. You told me I was lucky you kept me, and you did all of this because you thought I was powerless." I stepped closer to her. "But the truth is, Eleanor, you're the one with no power. Your husband's business has been hemorrhaging money for years. Your sons can't close a deal without their father's help. Your precious family estate is mortgaged to the hilt, and you're 1 bad quarter away from losing everything." "How do you know that?" "Because I'm an Okafor. And when we marry into a family, we do our due diligence." I smiled. "I've known about your financial problems since before the wedding. I've spent 4 years watching you pretend to be wealthy while your empire crumbles. And I've spent 4 years documenting every insult, every humiliation, every moment of cruelty, building a record that will ensure I get everything I want in the divorce." "You planned this? From the beginning?" "I hoped I wouldn't need to. I hoped my husband would defend me. I hoped your family would eventually see me as a person rather than a target. But you showed me who you are, Eleanor. Every day, in every way, you showed me." I turned back to Marcus. "I loved you. Despite everything, I actually loved you. But you never loved me enough to stand up for me. Not once. In 4 years, not once did you tell your mother that I deserved better. Not once did you insist I sit at the table with everyone else. Not once did you choose me over her approval. I was trying to keep the peace." "No. You were trying to keep your inheritance. You were afraid that if you challenged your mother, she would cut you off. And you decided that my dignity was worth less than your comfort." Tears were streaming down his face now. "Vivienne, please. It's over, Marcus. The divorce papers have already been filed. My attorneys will be in contact with yours." I walked toward the door, toward my father, toward the black cars waiting to take me away from this house forever. "Wait!" Eleanor's voice was sharp, desperate. "You can't just leave. We're family." I stopped at the door and looked back at her. "Family? For 4 years, you made me eat alone. You excluded me from every celebration. You called me a parasite in my own home. That's not family, Eleanor. That's abuse. We can change. Now that we know who you really are." "That's exactly the problem. You'd only treat me with respect because of who my father is, not because I deserve it as a human being, not because I'm Marcus's wife, but because you're afraid of what my family can do to you." I shook my head. "I don't want respect that's based on fear. I want respect that's based on basic human decency, and your family is incapable of that." I walked out the door, into the sunshine, into my father's arms, into the life I should have been living all along. The divorce was finalized in 23 days. Marcus didn't fight it. His family's attorneys advised against it. Apparently, going to court against the Okafor legal team was not a battle they wanted to wage. I didn't ask for alimony. I didn't need it. I asked for exactly one thing, a public statement acknowledging the Morrison family's treatment of me. They refused at first. Eleanor Morrison would rather die than admit wrongdoing. But then my father's attorneys reminded them about the documentation I had gathered. 4 years of texts, emails, recordings. 4 years of evidence that could be used to file civil suits for emotional abuse, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and a dozen other claims. They signed the statement. It was published in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The Morrison family acknowledges that Vivian Okafor Morrison was subjected to treatment inconsistent with our stated family values during her marriage to Marcus Morrison. We deeply regret any pain this caused and wish her well in her future endeavors. Corporate speak for, "We were terrible to her and we're sorry we got caught." It wasn't justice, but it was acknowledgement, and sometimes acknowledgement is enough. 2 years after the divorce, I was at a charity gala in London when I saw Marcus across the room. He looked older, tired. The confidence that had first attracted me to him had faded, replaced by something smaller, more defeated. He saw me too. For a moment, we just looked at each other, two strangers who had once shared a life. Then he walked over. "Vivian, Marcus, you look, well, I am well, better than I've ever been." He nodded, looking down at his drink. "I've thought about what you said, that day when you left, about how I never stood up for you. And you were right, I was a coward. I let my mother dictate my life because I was afraid of losing my inheritance, and I sacrificed you in the process. Yes, you did. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't change anything, but I needed you to know. I'm genuinely sorry for what I put you through." I studied him for a moment. This man I had loved, this man who had failed me, this man who was finally, belatedly, acknowledging his mistakes. "Thank you for saying that," I said. "It doesn't change anything, but it's still worth hearing." "What happened to you? After, I mean. I heard you went back to Nigeria." "I spent 6 months with my parents, healing, remembering who I was before I became your wife." I smiled slightly. "Then I took over the European expansion for Okafor Industries. We've tripled our presence in the last 18 months. That's incredible. It's what I was always capable of. I just forgot for a while when I was too busy trying to earn your family's approval. We didn't deserve you." "No, you didn't." He looked like he wanted to say more, to apologize again perhaps, to explain, to somehow undo the damage of 4 years. But there was nothing left to say. Goodbye, Marcus. Goodbye, Vivian. I walked away from him for the last time, and I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, no lingering pain, just peace. The peace of knowing that I had escaped, that I had reclaimed my life, that I would never again let anyone make me feel like I didn't belong at the table. 5 years after the divorce, I was in Atlanta on business. I had just closed a major deal, Okafor Industries' acquisition of a logistics company that would expand our American operations significantly. It was a triumph, the culmination of months of negotiation and strategy. I was celebrating with my team at a restaurant downtown when I noticed a familiar face at the bar, Eleanor Morrison. She looked different, smaller somehow, less polished. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by something more modest. The imperious posture had softened into something that looked almost like defeat. I shouldn't have approached her. The smart thing would have been to finish my dinner and leave without acknowledging her existence, but I had always been more curious than smart. Eleanor. She looked up, startled. When she recognized me, her face went through a series of emotions: surprise, shame, fear, and finally a kind of resignation. "Vivian, you look different." "Yes, well." She took a sip of her drink. "A lot has changed." "I heard about the business, the foreclosure. Did you come to gloat?" "No, I came to close a deal. Running into you was coincidence." "Ah." She stared into her glass. "The deal you just closed, that was Pemberton Logistics, wasn't it?" "Yes. Robert was trying to acquire them. 2 years ago, before everything fell apart." "I know. That's why I targeted them. When Okafor Industries swoops in where Morrison Development failed, it sends a message to the market." Eleanor laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Still getting your revenge, even now?" "It's not revenge. It's business. Your family's failure created an opportunity. I took it." "Is there a difference?" "Yes. Revenge would be personal. This is just capitalism." We sat in silence for a moment. "I've had a lot of time to think," Eleanor said finally, "about what I did to you, how I treated you. And I was wrong. Not because of who your family turned out to be. I was just wrong. You were my son's wife. You deserved to be treated with dignity regardless of where you came from or how much money you had. That's the first honest thing you've ever said to me. It's easy to be honest when you've lost everything. There's nothing left to protect." She finished her drink and stood up. "For what it's worth." And I? "No, it's worth nothing. I'm sorry. Genuinely sorry. Not because you turned out to be wealthy, but because I should never have treated any human being the way I treated you." "Thank you for saying that. You're not going to forgive me, are you?" "No, but I appreciate the apology." Eleanor nodded, as if she had expected nothing else. "You were always too good for my son. I see that now. I saw it then too, but I was too proud to admit it, too convinced that the Morrison name meant something that it didn't." She walked away without another word, and I sat there, in a restaurant in Atlanta, realizing that I had finally gotten something I hadn't known I needed. Not justice, not revenge, just acknowledgement. The acknowledgement that I had been wronged, the acknowledgement that I had deserved better, the acknowledgement that the woman who had hurt me finally understood what she had done. It wasn't closure. That's a myth we tell ourselves to feel better. But it was something. And sometimes, something is enough. If this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether you've ever had to reveal a truth that changed everything. Like and subscribe for more stories about dignity, patience, and the power of knowing your worth. She's lucky we even keep her. That's what my mother-in-law said after 4 years of making me eat in the kitchen. My husband said nothing. That night, I made one phone call. The next morning, 3 black cars pulled up outside their house. When my father-in-law opened the door, he went completely pale, because standing on his porch was my father, Emmanuel Okafor, chairman of a $2.3 billion empire, and he was not happy. "I understand you've been treating my daughter like a servant." For 4 years, they thought I was nobody. For 4 years, they made me eat alone. For 4 years, they called me a parasite. They never bothered to ask who I really was. They just assumed. An assumption is the mother of humiliation. The divorce was finalized in 23 days. I didn't take their money. I didn't need it. I just took back my dignity, and I left them with the knowledge of exactly what they lost. She's lucky we even keep her. No, Eleanor. You were lucky I stayed as long as I did, and you'll spend the rest of your life knowing you threw away a daughter-in-law worth more than everything you own.